Hey, what's going on, everybody? Brett here, back playing some more Total War Warhammer 2. My YouTube channel is Good Talk Gaming, of course, and this is going to be Game 3 in our 3-part Regiment of Renown and Heroes Only series. I'm going to be playing as the Dwarves, my ally Triiari, the Empire, and we're up against the Orcs and the Dread Fleet. So our opponents, of course, knew that this was Regiment of Renown and Hero Only battle, so they were kind enough to follow the stipulation here, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Unfortunately, however, the Red Desert is a pretty awkward map for artillery battles. You'll see here this huge lip and this giant obtrusion in the center makes it very difficult to get a line of sight. And because we are playing both the Dwarves and the Empire having actually 2 artillery pieces as their Regiment of Renowns. For those of you who aren't aware, the Sunmaker, probably the longest range unit in the game at 480, which we'll certainly take a look at in a second. Hammer of the Witches here, the Great Cannon, and also you can almost count the Templehof Luminarch, which has a Nets of Amnitoc type effect, the ability to net down a unit and then to shoot it to pieces with its enormous 1462 missile damage. An extremely powerful unit, which we will certainly go over a bit more in a second. And I have the Goblobber, so it applies armor-piercing damage, it has that discouragement aura, and just very high accuracy for a catapult type unit. And, you know, we also have the benefit of having some pretty good frontline units, thanks to mostly the Dwarves, I would say. The Peak Gate Guard, these guys are the elite of the elite hammers, armor sundering, armor piercing. See them waving their hammers around. I like listening to them talk. Oh, and there goes some shots. Slow-mo it. They're probably going to be destroying those Death Creepers there. I've also got the Grumbling Guard here in my center. These guys provide a Vigor replenishment aura and an AoE around themselves. Probably just going to be hitting like the Norgrimlings, the Hammers, the Skolder Guard, Ekron Miners, these sorts of things. It's a pretty small AoE. It used to be a lot bigger. I've also got the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers, as I mentioned. I think these are the best infantry units in the game if you include their satchel charges. Immune to Psychology, charge defense against all. So basically you just stand them still and let other people charge into you. And then the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass here with their flaming attacks and just great stats. Their anti-infantry bonus is pretty solid. And they're going to make a nice wall to protect all of our artillery. The Ekron Miners back here standing behind the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers. They have extra ammunition when it comes to throwing their satchel charges. Yeah, and you'll see in the background, God, the Hellstorm Rocket Battery is just so brutal. It's going to be taking out these Death Creepers pretty early. Of course, they're trying to scout us out, and I'm doing something very similar with my Sky Hammer, which, for those of you who've never seen this unit before, I would not blame you because it's not a unit you get to see very often. It's a Regiment of Renown Gyro Bomber, has huge missile damage, but the benefit of it has improved bombs. So we'll see if I get any good bombings off this game. I've flown up over this lip here, and that gave us enough vision for us to kind of take a shot or two. The Goblobber fired at least one shot. Back here, I've also got the Skolder Guard, super heavy armor piercing, anti-infantry. They have a physical resistance, which is pretty unique, 20%. They're extremely difficult to take out. They'll tank a lot of damage. 120 armor. I mean, that's just ridiculous for a ranged unit to have that kind of protection. Dragonback Slayers back here guarding my artillery in case there was any sort of Vanguard deployment shenanigans, which I know the Greenskins and their Regiments of Renown have in ample supply. So they have a slowing attack, an effect that they can put on hit, 20% physical resistance. Let's get into that. They are, of course, unbreakable. They have Death Blow, but it's Power of the Dragon Black back. So it applies a minus 36% speed debuff, which is just great. And the flame weakness isn't really going to be relevant, but the Ulthar's Raiders here, these guys can use their ability Mulk by Ulthar to lower armor, missile resistance, and missile parry. So any shielded unit that gets targeted by that ability and then shot by their throwing axes is going to have a really, really bad day. So, and then I guess I also should say I have Belagar Ironhammer, and the only ability that I have on him in order to kind of cut costs and maximize my units is definitely going to be the Mighty Oath Stone. Plus 27% melee defense and then expert charge defense, which is really good when I'm trying to absorb that initial charge. I'm using the Sky Hammer here to kind of counter skirmish out the Death Creepers, and with just a few more attacks here from the Hammer of the Witches, very direct fire, we're going to be able to chase them off pretty handily. The Sky Hammer wants to be firing at blobbed up armored infantry, but in lieu of that, just shooting at anything is pretty fine. It's still bugged. You cannot see how many kills it gets based off of its bombings. So I think I end up doing quite a bit more work here with that unit than it ends up showing. So my Empire ally here, Triiari, Using the Unbreakable Sigmar Sons and Tattersouls units. These guys are basically just swordsmen, a little bit souped up. They also have a ward save of 12%. Where's that coming from? Is that do they have that naturally? I don't think so. No, of course not. It's coming from the Templehof Luminarch. That's something I always forget that it has. So it affects allies in a 40-meter range and only works as long as you have more than 50% of your mana. That's pretty amazing. So it also has an effect that lowers the casting ability of your opponents. So the Royal Altdorf Griffites are going to be our most mobile unit. We desperately need them to counter any type of skirmishing, any type of fast-moving cavalry, which they definitely have in spades. They cause terror. They're probably the strongest monstrous cavalry unit in the game, if not the strongest cavalry unit in the game. And then a nice tiered approach here on this hill from Triiari. The Sterling's Revenge are armor-piercing, and they have much shorter range than the Silver Bullets, which also do magic damage, which is pretty relevant, and they are hidden. So they have stalk as well, which is great for them. A Light Wizard here going to be giving us a bit more spellcasting, Nets of Amnatok, as well as Shem's Burning Gaze for some damage dealing. And then we have, way out here, the General of the Empire with a Witch Hunter to provide some accusations. God, that's such a cool model. And it's another unit. It's a shame you don't really get to see them very often. But let's just actually go into normal speed and we'll go over the enemy's armies as they approach, because they do have to approach us thanks to our superiority in terms of artillery. So one of the changes they made to the Skyhammer, and there you see its bombs go off. Shoulder guards shooting in, they'll never make it to the front lines. Pretty great. But one of the changes they made to the Skyhammer was that it can shoot while moving forward. It can't shoot behind itself, but it allows it to shoot a lot more ammunition, which makes it much more of an effective unit. So they're going to sit outside of our range here and shoot at us. Meanwhile, Triiari's focusing down the Crimson Killers. You can take a look at these bad boys, and they get absolutely melted by the Hellstorm rocket battery. That's a great choice of targets. And they're trying to skirmish us down. We don't really have, a good front line for taking missile fire, especially, the Grumbling Guard and the Peak Gate Guard don't have any missile resistance at all. But the Scolder Guard are going to be absolutely tearing into them. I bring them into the front because I want them to take that damage. Man, that was going to be a big shot from Count Noctilus here up on the high ground. You also have the Gallows Giant putting flames on the Templehof Luminarch. Triiari got a little ahead of himself. He tried to get a big shot on the Gallows Giant, and he did. Now I think he's going to be using a Net of Amnatok to try and keep these Goblin Big Bosses away from him. But blasting charges going off from the Ekron's Miners, from Northernling's Ironbreakers, and they're absolutely going to break up this charge and allow for the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, the Northernling's Ironbreakers, to keep this charge. The Night Goblins are going to go down. Some of them are unbreakable, but that's not going to matter if there are almost none of them left to fight. Grimgor here, marked by Ulthar, and I am just chunking him down with the Ulthar's Raiders. Their armor-piercing damage is obscene, especially with marked by Ulthar. We're taking some damage from the Shade Wraith Gunners here with their magic damage. They also have a Discouragement aura, and there's really nothing good on the field to take them down. But perhaps, with a little bit of focus fire here, the Hammer of the Witches does magic damage. If they start shooting at them, they should crumble pretty quickly. A Foot of Gort tried to go off here, and I was able to dodge it with the Peak Gate Guard. I pulled my Skyhammer back because it was taking a lot of focus fire for a second there, and in a moment we're going to see these very sneaky Morgul Haunters and Night Terrors attempt to get up into our back line. They're a little late. Luckily our Scolder Guard are not quite going down. Their physical resistance does not protect them from all of this magic damage, and it's at this point that we can begin to see the Morgul Haunter. And I've used some of my infantry over here to kind of screen out what's left of the Greenskin forces. But as I see these guys coming, I realize we need to focus. The Dragonback Slayers are going to be perfect for dealing with them. If we can get them into melee, they have regen. So the Dragonback Slayers are pretty much the perfect unit. They're lightly armored. They're going to be able to get into there and deal a lot of damage to them. And we've even decided to shoot at them with our Scolder Guard. Our Thane is getting in there. Warriors of Dragonfire Pass do fire damage, which is always very good against targets that regen. This is a pretty big pit fight here. The General of the Empire is standing in the center with these Lamprey's Revenge, these giant crab boys with shotguns on the back, and they regenerate as well. But against the Altdorf Griffites, who are made to kill these type of units, they're going to have a difficult time. Zombie pirate deckhand mobs being summoned. They're also a bit inundated by the moon howlers, which cause fear. Not very relevant in this particular engagement. They're just light cav on blue, these like bluish colored wolves. But they're going to get absolutely wrecked. And the Necrofex Colossus here, the Gallows Giant, using those flaming attacks, and it's dumpstering the Templehof Luminarch. That did so much damage. I would think you'd want to be shooting at some sort... Yes, that was the money shot. That's what we're here to see, guys. I would think you'd want to be shooting into this blob of infantry, but it's going down very quickly. Hammer of the Witches plus Templehof Luminarch are going to spell its doom, but not before he gets to summon a zombie pirate deckhand mob into the fight. Triari's taking up a nice little firing position here with the silver bullets, and the Sterling's Revenge, who aren't half bad in melee as well. Templehof Luminarch still online. What is he shooting at? That was kind of... that probably killed a lot of our own guys, but I guess he's shooting at the Lamprey's Revenge. Not a terrible target. Orc Shaman, big bosses, another Orc Shaman. So that's giving them a lot of leadership that they can use to kind of stay into this fight. The Gunnery White's just on this hill, on top of his crab, shooting at us, no doubt, with his rifle. And I've switched over my artillery as well to shoot at these guys. We need them to crumble, because they're a pretty devastating unit. They don't generally get a ton of kills, but whatever single target you shoot at with them goes down pretty quickly. The Scolder Guard here, loading up those awesome cannons and just firing kind of point blank into the Morgul Halter. Net of Amnitok not doing anything to it, because the way it attacks with its animations, it just kind of flops around. It's a pretty useless target to actually try a Net of Amnitok. The Ulthar's Raiders here getting into melee. They're not bad melee combatants with their great weapons. Peaks Gate Guards fighting only 14 models left, but with their nearby Thane, they're doing okay. Dragonback Slayers chasing down this Orc Shaman. Skyhammer has gotten a heck of a lot more than 12 kills, I can tell you that. But, like I said, it's bugged. It doesn't count all those kills. And I think we're just about routing everything off. Point blank shot there, going to miss from the Templehof Luminarch. And we still have a bit of ammunition on the Hammer of the Witches. Goblobber's just about done. And the Hellstorm rocket battery shoots its fire very quickly. It almost always runs out of ammunition before you're able to even engage sometimes. Before lines clash, the Hellstorm rocket battery could empty its payload completely. So very fun game. Our opponents, I think, suffered somewhat from a disjointed engagement. And, some of the skirmisher cav got thrown in perhaps a bit too early. Maybe needed to do some sort of Vanguard deployment surround type strategy. And a lot of commitment to having double Orc Shaman, double Big Boss. Maybe cut one of each and some abilities or some spells, and then they could have possibly had like the Arachnarok Queen, an extremely powerful Regiment of Renown unit that maybe could have helped them swing the tide of battle. And then I would also probably say the same thing of Count Noctilus. I don't hate the choice of the Gunnery White, but without like Queen Bess, you had the Gallows Giant and Count Noctilus, so he was definitely able to recharge their ammunition, not bad, as well as I guess the Shade Wraith Gunners, but they really needed to be protected, and there just wasn't enough chaff here for them to withstand all of our artillery fire, combined artillery fire. Lots and lots of kills here from the Ekron Miners and the Norgling Ironbreakers. Very devastating use of the satchel charges. Scolder Guard for once got a lot of value, and the Skyhammer Bomber, way more, once again, than 12 kills, but its real value was in the ability to scout out our opponents and allow our artillery to fire as soon as possible. And you'll see there my artillery piece did quite well, and so did Triari's. I mean, even getting this number of kills isn't bad considering some of the targets they were firing at. I mean, when you consider a lot of the targets that the Sunmaker took down were actually these Crimson Killers who got 0 kills, that hurt so bad. It suddenly looks a lot more impressive. And then the Hammer of the Witches was able to basically decimate Count Noctilus before he was able to get off his full value in terms of heals, summons, all that type of thing. And then the Templehof Luminarch was going toe-to-toe with the Gallows Giant, who only got 2 kills, but very nearly destroyed the Templehof Luminarch. With just a little bit of help, it probably would have succeeded. Also, very good Witch Hunter play. To get 20 kills with a Witch Hunter, have it at full health at the end of a battle. They're not bad in melee either, so this was a pretty one-sided fight, but it was still very fun to play, and thanks to our opponents Doug Boatman and Freeze Daddy 1 for being good sports and allowing us to showcase this fun battle. When I picked the map, I knew it was going to be a poor artillery map, but I felt like between me and Triari, we had so much artillery, and ranged firepower that I felt like it might end up being unfair if we did like an open map. So I wanted to give our opponents a bit of a chance, and I was honestly shocked that Queen Bess wasn't on this side of the battlefield, and I was a little bit shocked as well that the Ragnarok Queen wasn't in the Orc army. But Queen Bess would have made for a pretty cool artillery showdown. She is absolutely amazing at dumpstering opposing artillery. With the Gunnery Wight, she can basically stay with ammunition for an entire battle, and which means, of course, that she also has the racial trait of having the explosive ammunition. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Once again, my name is Brett. My channel is Good Talk Gaming. I have plenty more battles to come. I still have quite a few that I need to cast. If you guys would like to submit a replay to me, just add me on Steam. I am Good Talk Gaming. And shoot me a little message. Say, hey man, I'm a subscriber. I have a replay that I'd like to send you. It's recent. Please let it be recent. Otherwise, it won't work very well with the current patch. And I'll take a look and consider casting it. But anyway, thank you guys. Have a great day. And I will see you in the next one. Take care.